Hello, I'm here today with Akilah Richards of the Life Design Agency, and we're here to talk about SBLS. I have a lot to talk with Akilah about because she was there at the actual conception of SBLS. So I'm really looking forward to this chat. Most of all, it's our 1 year anniversary, and I'm talking to people who've been there from the beginning. So welcome, Akilah.
Thank you very much and happy anniversary, happy birthday.
Thank you. So, okay, tell your side of being there from the conception that you were. Akilah was my life coach at the time before there was even a actual concept of an SBLS. Of course, that seed has been within me since birth.
Mhm.
But Akilah was there to help me put it all together and encouraging me and coaching me and helping me actually birth this baby. So I definitely want to hear from your side about what that was like to be there from the beginning.
It was awesome and juicy and fun and engaging, and I just did a lot of listening and mhm because, as Ivy said, it's as you know, it's been within you this whole time, and really, I think even with the refresh group that you had before and what you were talking about before on your blog when you started with naked blogging and all of that, really SBLS is just a culmination and a focus on a lot of the things that you had been doing before anyway. It's just a
Mhm.
lot more sharp, and it's a lot more, it's a niche in a sense, to use a business word to talk about a very spiritual thing. It's a niche in a sense because you're giving women and men the opportunity to talk about a very specific set of pain points and celebration points as opposed to the general overview of what it means to love yourself. And that's what I love about SBLS.
So when you first, when we first started talking about SBI,
Rewind.
right. When we first started talking about SBLS, we had some kind of a concept of what it was going to be, and it's evolved, of course, over the year. Watching it from your vantage point, like what are some of the evolutions that you've seen?
Let's see. Again, getting more specific, which is what's really important. I think there's so many voices out there that are talking about self-love and body love, and they're all important, and they're all, just people's stories and experiences. But SBLS over the year singular, it feels like it's been much longer, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, over the year, it's really just been refined, and I really appreciate that because now I see people are talking about specific elements of what they deal with in this journey of acknowledging who they are and how they are, and then finding a place to love themselves and then creating steps for what that love might look like. And I think the SBLS community, with the post that you put out and the post that the rest of the community puts out, gives people an opportunity to deal with that in a very specific set of ways. And I think that's continuing to be refined as the brand and the meaning progresses.
Yeah, I definitely think that going along the journey, that as I'm learning more about people and I'm learning more about myself and the needs, it's definitely becoming, like you said, becoming more refined. And it's
Yeah.
interesting how like the calling will actually teach you the farther you get into the journey.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true, Ivy. I mean, I definitely can echo that sentiment, and I really appreciate that SBLS gives people that space. It's not the one that says, well, if you're not feeling good about your body, that's the problem. You need to deal with that. Or, if you're talking about the issues of people being overweight and you have a problem with that, you need to deal with that. Like, it's very non-judgmental and very conversational. And the more you do the work, the more you recognize, there actually is a space for me to express this thing. Or sometimes you recognize that the work looks different, as you go on, like what you thought it was maybe on day one. Did you experience that a lot of the things you didn't even anticipate being a part of the work?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I've learned I started out with well, early on, I don't know if it was at the very beginning, but early on, my mindset was, releasing judgment of self and others. And as I went on, I realized just how much judgment there still was within the way that I was thinking about things.
Mm-hmm.
So as I go along, it's like I learn more and more about how not to be judgmental and how to see things from a loving perspective. Even like you're saying, not judging people who may look at other people's bodies in a derogatory way, but really questioning, okay, why is it that they have that problem, and really hearing them out and learning from that how to actually connect with the people who feel that way.
Yes.
And learning how much society has really taught all of us a lot of misinformation, and a lot of times we're walking with that and we're carrying that inside of ourselves, and they've become our definitions and we don't even know.
Yeah, exactly. And you taught me a lot about that, as I always share publicly, even with my own judgments and criticisms of weight management, what that looked like to me and my own personal fears around it, and recognizing that it doesn't really look that different. So for one person, it might be weight gain or weight loss, and for another person, it might be the changes in the body. And we've talked about this before, whether it's from pregnancy or illness or life, just chronology, like just getting older or whatever. These things that happen, and what I appreciate is that there's a public dialogue, because not all of us can look at it from a loving space, as you said, or release any judgment around other people being judgmental, because I'm not there. I'm still like, what? When that comes up, I still get like really defensive and really protective, particularly when it comes to women, as a mother, as a daughter, as a woman, just having this really protective voice and space around all of this judgment, and facing other people in that space, not from a place of compassion, but for me personally, but more so from a place of, okay, defend it. Defend what it is that you're saying. Like, my dialogue shows up like that, whereas your dialogue shows up in a way that's probably a lot more palatable for most, and that's important, because it's not soft, but it does leave a lot more room than people like me. My voice is in a different space, and that's good, because then I can lurk on SBLS and say, okay, that's what's going on there. So I'm gonna not say that, because I don't want Ivy to get mad. No, I know you'd never do that. But I really think it's important that there's a space, or spaces, where the different ways that people are, the different spaces they're on their journey, there's a place for them to dialogue and get support and meaning and understanding around that. And I think SBLS has so many pockets that wherever you are, whether you're like me and you're like, or if it's more like you, where it's like, okay, what's going on? Why do you feel like that? There's a space for both of those voices to be heard and to be explored.
Definitely.
And that's great. Yeah.
Definitely. Because, like, all of it comes from the bottom line, and the root of it is it comes from how we feel about ourselves when it comes to how we perceive other people. And that sometimes that can be hard to swallow, because you don't really realize sometimes that the way you're interpreting someone else's body, or their medical condition, or their hair, or their whatever, their life experience, comes from what you've learned, what you've embraced to be the truth, your truth. And sometimes when a person comes to you and makes you question that truth, you're like,
yeah, so, exactly.
It is about learning and growing. It's constantly learning and growing, and I'm definitely evolved in that way. Even so much as allowing men to feel welcome with the SBLS.
That's great.
And understanding that there's major issues with men having eating disorders and body issues, and that as well. So
I love that part. I'm gonna just wiggle in right there about the importance of that, because there's two parts to it. On one side of the coin, there definitely is a lot of muted expression when it comes to men and their issues with body and self-love. Like, there's such a double standard, because on one side we say we want our men to be loving and supportive and all of that, but then there really aren't a lot of spaces where that can happen without the judgment of, oh, really? I thought that was a woman's issue. Like, men face those issues. I see that all the time, even over on the other side in my communities, where that's happening and there's no voice for men. But when you do put a microphone, whether that's quite literally or in the form of a post or whatever, you find out that not only are they affected by it, but listen, if a woman is affected by something, everybody is affected by something.
Yeah.
So if he's in a household with a woman, whether that's his daughter, his wife, his mama, his cousin, his bestie, his roommate, whatever, that guy is also influenced by that. And why shouldn't there be a space where he can be educated and be free to ask questions without feeling judged? You know, I write over at Everyday Feminism, and I had one gentleman who commented on the post, not on Everyday Feminism, but on Google. So I shared it on Google Plus, and he and I had this robust dialogue that he didn't feel comfortable having on that side, not because of anything that Everyday Feminism did or didn't do, but because the general sentiment is man not welcome.
Yeah.
And so I think it's awesome, and I know there are men in the community who I see in the SBLS community that I see posting consistently, and I think that's going to slowly give other men permission in that sense to say, yeah, actually, I don't feel good about this, or I don't understand this, or why is she so frustrated? I don't get it. Because a lot of times it isn't lack of compassion, it's lack of information.
Yeah.
You know, and then other times they think we're just whining and whatever, but we're not talking about that guy, and the truth is that we shouldn't lump them all together, because that's the very same thing that we're fighting against too, that lumping together and that stereotypical element of what a woman should or shouldn't look like, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing I've learned is that because, you know, we've grown up in society as women, we've received these ads and we've received these messages almost, well, basically since birth of, you know, what beauty is, what feminism is, what it is to be a woman. So some of this has become our inner dialogue, but they don't have that same dialogue. So feel that frustration. They don't get it. You know, when we feel expectations to act or react or look or be a certain way, they don't understand it. And sometimes we don't understand where it comes from either. But the thing is, it's been directed towards us. So it's become an internal frustration. And they're looking like, well, you know, I've had the dialogue with men who are like, it's really not that big of a deal. You know, that sometimes we're harder on ourselves than they are. And you know, we're saying, well, you know, it has to look this way, our body has to be this way, and I've had men who are like, it really doesn't matter to me. You know, as long as you look, you know, clean or neat, or you care for yourself, you love yourself, you're confident, that's what matters. And we're looking at the small things like waist size, hip size, and there are men, you know, there are men who feel that way, but there are men who don't. And like you said, it's about not lumping them all together and giving those men a voice and actually inviting them to be a part of this empowerment for their daughters, their mothers, their wives, their sisters, the women that they love in their lives as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
So going forward, do you have any words of wisdom? Any comments for SBLS going forward?
Really, it seems already that the theme has been formed, and the theme is really around dialogue, because as you were even talking about how there are so many men who have no issues with the changes in a woman's body or the differences in women's bodies, but then take the men out of the equation and we have those issues with each other. Why she got that on? She ain't even got no breasts. She shouldn't have that kind of shirt on. Or her butt is to this or whatever. Like there's so many spaces. So I would say if there was a wisdom phrase or something like that, I would say pay attention. Pay attention to the dialogue that's going on in the SBLS communities, you know, whether it's Facebook or Google Plus or Instagram or the blog itself, which is great. But also pay attention to the body and self-love conversations going on around you. Because as you start to do that, you know, as we said, you see yourself in your work, and paying attention is work. It can be an active thing, and the more you do that, the more you'll start to recognize, and I see this happen all the time, it happens to me all the time, and people around me all the time, the more present you get, the more you start to recognize the spaces where you weren't so present or you aren't so present, and it gives you an opportunity to have a different inner dialogue, right? And you may not change your mind. We're not, or I'm not saying that you need to be a part of this because you're wrong or you need to change your perspective, but you do need to gain perspective. And as you said, a lot of the things are inside and we don't even recognize that there's an issue. Because I might say, you know, like Beyonce, that was such a big thing when that came out in her album, the most recent album. And one woman or a man might say, well, that's ridiculous. She's overly sexualized. And you know, I don't understand why they're lumping it together with feminism or whatever the point is. But as you start to be a part of communities like SBLS, you see the connections that you may not make. You see what empowerment looks like through different eyes. Yes. And you may not change your mind about what you feel, but you gain perspective. And perspective is everything. Yes. So pay attention with the intention of gaining perspective, and let that do whatever it does in and around you.
Yes, I love that. I love that. About what you're doing. You've got awesome stuff. You've been going through transformation yourself on your side. I'll let you tell us more about that, about what's going on.
Sure. Briefly, so I started out originally doing work around, and I'm still doing work around emotional wellness for women. But I recognized maybe about 3 years ago, or a little bit less than that maybe, that I don't care if you're emotionally well. And the reason I don't care is because I can't control that. Like, emotional wellness is a constantly evolving series of end results, if that makes any sense, right? Oh, yeah. So I can't control that portion, but what I can control, which leads you to emotional wellness, hopefully, are tools for helping you get there. And that's what radical self-expression is, because it boils down to mutedness, like the areas of your life where you acquiesce, where you put up a wall, right? Something happened and you put up a wall, and then you kept it moving, right? The wall was there, and then you knew how to go around it because it was your wall, but the wall is still there. So then you happen upon a situation inevitably where that wall becomes an issue and you don't recognize it. So you build another wall around that new situation instead of addressing that wall, but you're still trying to get to being emotionally well. So I'm transitioning, in a sense, from focusing on what it means to be well and the active steps towards wellness. So now I'm going at the active steps toward wellness, and that's what the radical self-expression work is. I've always been talking about it, kind of like you with SBLS, but now it's focused. So I've transitioned execumama.com, which was my primary blog, to radicalselfie.com. All the same content is there from the past, but the new work is now focused.
You're back now.
Okay, perfect. So now it's focused on what it means to create the action steps for self-love and self-expression. So my most recent book, which is Radical Self-Expression Manifesto, I'm so excited and proud. Oh my God, I can't even tell you. Man, anybody who writes, as you know, thank you. Yeah. Anybody who writes understands, like, the work and the birthing process of writing a book. Yeah. And this book, I've been working on this book since, what is this, 2014? Since 2011.
Wow.
Because it started out as a fictional piece, and then as the work continued, then I just, created a mix where it's a fictional book, but very much spiritual work.
Yeah.
And then I've created a course around it, which I'll be teaching over at udemy.com, Radical Self-Expression course. I was like, oh my God, there's not a course around radical self-expression, creating it. So, yes, and then I'm doing an event June 14th of this year in Atlanta at Tongue and Groove. It's Radical Self-Expression Summit, where I'm going to really just celebrate and put on a pedestal 9 women who I think just beautifully embody radical self-expression. And we're going to have music, poetry. There's a fashion show, several mini fashion shows going on, all around this concept of self-expression, and it's also going to be the launch of the book at that time. So that's the overview.
That's exciting. Like, I'm excited just listening. Like, yes, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Especially listening to the summit. I love gathering women. So just the concept of in June, gathering women together in this space and talking about radical self-expression. And oh my gosh, that sounds awesome.
Yes. And the honorees, there are 9 women, as I said, that we're honoring in Ivy. The site will be live by Saturday because we just confirmed our venue yesterday, actually. Yeah, so that's really new. So when you see these women, you'll understand why I'm so excited and honored to be putting this together. And I really take this responsibility seriously because it needs to happen. We need to understand these women's process for self-love. Like how did you turn self-love and self-expression into your art form, starting with how you personally did it. And that's what the event is going to be about. So of course visual artistry has to be part of that mix, and music and spoken word, and just the dialogue. So we have women like Karen Marie Mason, who's responsible for so many of the musical and artistic careers of women and men in and around Atlanta. Angelou Ezelo, who started Greening Youth Foundation so that young people of color can take advantage of all these awesome environmental opportunities. Deneen Milner, who wrote all of these amazing books that really talk about what it means to express yourself. I mean, Sarak, one of my favorite, dopest MCs, who just makes me want to be like, yeah, walk into a room, like kicking in doors and shit. Like, these are the women, and I'm leaving out some, these are the women who we're going to get all up in their feelings and dance with, and I'm just so excited. So June 14th, it's going to be on radicalselfie.com, and I really want people to come out and be a part of the live event, as well as all the digital goodies that we'll do leading up to it. We'll do some video series and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Awesome. You guys heard that, so make your way to the APL. If you're not already there, June 14th, to be a part of that. And that's going to be totally awesome. I'm so happy to have you here. You were there at the beginning and the reception, and helped me go through that whole labor process. And
it was my pleasure, Ivy. I mean, you do what is deeply entrenched in your soul, and that's really, really obvious to me. Always has been. You know this. So I'm always really grateful. My daughter is like lurking over me, kind of the things that you had been doing before anyway. It's just a lot more sharp, and it's a lot more, it's a niche in a sense, to use a business word to talk about a very spiritual thing. It's a niche in a sense because you're giving women and men the opportunity to talk about a very specific set of pain points and celebration points, as opposed to the general overview of what it means to love yourself. And that's what I love about SBLS.
So when you first, when we first started talking about SBLS,
much, and happy anniversary, happy birthday.
Thank you. So, okay, tell your side of being there from the conception that Akilah was my life coach at the time, before there was even a actual concept of an SBLS. Of course, that seed has been within me since, birth. But Akilah was there to help me put it all together and encouraging me and coaching me. Hello, I'm here today with Akilah Richards of the Life Design Agency, and we're here to talk about SBLS. I have a lot to talk with Akilah about because she's there at the actual conception of SBLS. So I'm really looking forward to this chat. Most of all, it's our 1-year anniversary, and I'm talking to people who've been there from the beginning. So welcome, Akilah.
Thank you very much. You on?
Right. When we first started talking about SBLS, we had some kind of a concept of what it was going to be, and it's evolved, of course, over the year. Watching it from your vantage point, like what are some of the evolutions that you've seen?
Let's see. Again, getting more specific, which is what's really important. I think there's so many voices out there that are talking about self-love and body love, and they're all important, and they're all
and helping me actually birth this baby. So I definitely want to hear from your side about what that was like to be there from the beginning.
it was awesome and juicy and fun and engaging, and I just did a lot of listening and mm because, as Ivy said, it's as you know, it's been within you this whole time, and really, I think even with the refresh group that you had before, and what you were talking about before on your blog when you started with naked blogging and all of that, really SBLS is just a culmination and a focus on a lot